read down through 9. So pick up at 9 and read down through 13.
Is it 10?
Anybody?
Okay. And in another place it is written, rejoice with his people, you Gentiles. And yet again, praise the Lord, all you Gentiles. Praise him, all you people of the earth. And in another place, Isaiah said, the heir to David's throne will come, and he will rule over the Gentiles. They will place their hope on him. I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in him. Then you will overflow with a confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's, he lists a whole bunch of places in the Old Testament where the Gentiles were part of this plan of salvation. And the Jews knew all this. The first passage you'll find in 2 Samuel 22:15. The second passage, verse 10, you'll find in Deuteronomy and Isaiah. Verse 11, another passage, and it's found in Psalms, the 117:1. 12 is a fourth passage, and it's found in Isaiah, and again in Matthew. It's repeated in Matthew. Okay, so how did the Jews miss it? How did they come to the point where they thought the Gentiles were just dogs and what was the word they used for them all the time?
Infidels.
Means filthy.
Infidels. Infidels.
Infidels. Yeah, they're infidels. And it means a despicable, dirty, filthy person. And they call them dogs. How'd they miss it?
Self-absorbed.
Yeah. They just cared about themselves. They didn't care about anybody else. They wanted to be the rulers of the world, and they didn't want to share anything with anybody. Okay. Still a little bit that way. But a lot of them are coming to Christ and finding the grace of God. It's an interesting verse down there. Oh, give me some other examples in the Old Testament where God made it clear that he was happy with Gentiles.
Paul? Or, Paul.
Paul.
Paul
Old
said he,
Testament.
Old Testament?
Hold on to that.
Okay.
Hold on to that. But in the Old Testament, first, let's go to the Old Testament. We'll get to the New.
Okay.
You're right.
Rahab.
Rahab was a prostitute in Jericho, and who ended up being and who married into the Jewish race, and then who ended up being coming from her lineage. Jesus, by way of David. Okay. You know, everybody was looking at David. Well, if you follow David's lineage back, Rahab's in there. Okay, give me another one. Last Sunday's sermon.
Oh, Ruth.
Ruth. Yep, exactly. Last Sunday's sermon. Ruth was a Moabite, and she came over and married
Boaz.
Moab. Yeah. She's a Moabite, and she married.
Boaz?
Yeah, Boaz. Okay, and then she factored into the line of David and down into the lineage of Jesus. So God made it very, very clear through those two instances and through others, all through the temple. What about the temple indicated that Gentiles were welcome to become part of God's people?
Gentile court.
At a Gentile court. Remember why Jesus was so upset about the Gentile court? He had turned it into a den of thieves. I mean, he wasn't upset about the lambs. There had to be a lamb for the Passover. He wasn't upset about them coming and worshiping in the temple and the blood being shed. he was upset because there was no place for the Gentiles to come in. And that was one of the references in Matthew, where he cleansed the temple. He was infuriated because he was dying for the sins of the world, and the Jews only cared about the Jews. They were self-absorbed. They didn't care anything about it. Okay, New Testament. What are some examples?
Paul.
Paul. We just came up on it, and I think it's chapter 15 or 16, and it'd be in 19 again, where Paul finally branches off, and he starts ministering only to the Gentiles. And God made that clear to Peter. How did he make it clear to Peter? Remember the sheep and all the unclean animals? Peter was hungry, and he had this vision, and the sheep came down from heaven, and it was filled with crayfish, and lobsters, and shrimp, and all kinds of things that the Jews couldn't eat. And God said, take and eat. There wasn't anything in the sheep that a Jew could eat. If you look at the list there, because he didn't want Peter to go over there and get a lamb chop. He left him no out. And so he looks at what's in the sheep. He says, Lord, I've never eaten anything unclean. I'm not eating from that. How many times did he do it?
3.
3 times he rejected. 3. It's always the 3s with Peter, isn't it? I mean, talk about a hard hit. You'd think at some point Peter would say, duh, maybe I only gotta go 2 next time. Remember when we first started having kids, it took a while, and we'd been married 9 years. Everybody in church said, Bill, it's 9 months, not 9 years. But anyway, it was a big joke in the church while we were still there. But
Three.
3. We were having kids, and I said, we're only going to tell them 3 times. We tell them the 3rd time, they're going to get a spanking. Did you know that 6-month-old kids can count to 3? After a while, it was like, they'd do it 3 times and then quit doing it. And I looked at my wife and I said, they're smarter than we are. From now on, we're going to tell them once, and they better straighten up. And but they figured out that I would let them go 3 times, and guess what they did? 3 times, and it was kind of crazy, human nature. Okay, another example in the New Testament. Jesus himself.
The woman at the well.
Woman at the well was a Samaritan. Okay? Woman at the well was a Samaritan. And remember when the disciples came back and saw him talking to the woman in the middle of the day? He said, what's he doing? That's a Samaritan. And he's talking to a woman. Tradition back there, the woman walked behind. No, I'm not advocating this, okay? But the woman walked behind the man.
Look at me over here.
Kind of outnumbered here. Could be quicksand or whatever. But the woman walked behind the husband, and they didn't converse in public. Not even with her husband. If they had to talk, they would step into an alley, or they would go behind a building or something. The men didn't talk to the women in public. I have no idea where that came from, but that's the way it was. And pretty much we fixed it in America. But even a lot of churches, up until just a few years ago, the men sat on the right side of the church and the women sat on the left. Quaker church, for one.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that. Yeah.
And the Pentecostal church, when it was early, back in the 1800s, they did the same thing.
Here too.
We had two.
Not
Yes.
every, not every beta, but some of them.
Here-
We had two
here
doors. The
You didn't hear
yeah,
from
one for the men, one
Not
for
while I
the
was alive, but.
yeah. It's the pictures upstairs.
There was
Yeah,
definitely
and
doors
the,
to
yeah,
enter in.
the only way the men would enter with their wives through, sometimes through the women's door, but the women never entered through the men's door.
But I mean, Mom has told me that when she was a teenager, there was even a few people up here that, you know, whenever the teens would sit together or something like that, they were like, no. So even that recent, yeah.
Well, we actually fixed that. What's that called, when you are so strict and unrelenting about something like that?
Ridiculous.
Doctrinally, what's that called? Legalism. Called legalism. One verse in the Bible says something, so you make a doctrine. Well, if you go back and look at some of these situations, there was good reasons for them. The cultural setting at the time, when it said women should not ask questions of their husbands in church but wait till they get home. Well, the women sat on one side of the church, the men sat on the other, and they almost had to yell to ask their husband a question. And so Paul said, quit disrupting the service. If you got a question, ask when you get home. But he wasn't saying women should shut up and not ask questions. It was just the situation at the time made it very disruptive for people to hear the message and to realize the point that was trying to be done. All right. We have another trilogy down here, and we talked about one the other day. It was 1 Corinthians 13. Faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Okay. We got another one here. And it happens fairly often in the scripture, these three words are put together. Verse 13.
Hope, joy, and peace.
Yep. Faith, joy, and peace. Faith, joy, and peace. We've never done the fullness thing, have we? We did some topical, but we didn't do the fullness thing. All through the Bible, you find the word full and fullness. Because, and it means, I want you to be complete. I want you to have all that I can possibly give you, and I want it to change your life, sustain you, protect you, provide for you, and give you peace. Okay? So, there's the fullness of your joy, so your joy might be full. That's a half a dozen times in Scripture. That your salvation might be full. What's it mean by salvation might be full? Do you
Faith.
think any Christian, go ahead.
Your salvation, you should have it full of your hope, your joy. You know, your whole being needs to be full of your Christian beliefs, your care, your belief in God and the Spirit and everything.
Okay. How full do you think most Christians' salvation ends up being? That they actually realize and embrace the fullness of the benefits of their salvation? What percentage do you think it is? Now, it's different for different people, and there's no magic number out there. But just think about your life. Do you think you enjoy 50% of the benefits, or 30% of the benefits, or 90% of the benefits? Or as you learn about it, do you daily become more aware of how blessed you really are and how much peace there is for you, and how God has provided for you to deal with anything that comes back to you with victory? Compared to 20 years ago, where do you think you are today?
Much better. A lot better.
twice as good? Were you 20% 20 years ago, and now you're 40? Or were you 50 and now you're 90?
Twice as big.
What?
I said, we've been married for 20 years, am I twice as good? And he went, I said, I'm twice as big.
I'm glad you said that. We were riding along the car the other day, my wife looked at me and she said, your hair is turning into the prettiest shade of white. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, I can sit. This ball game would have ended up a whole lot different than it's going to today. You know?
You say, and there's not a hint in yours.
That's
There's not a hint of gray in yours.
Not a bit. Well, 2,000 years, $2,000 worth of Mary Kay, you guys gotta do something with it. Okay, peace, we've talked about peace. Peace is a spiritual thing. Jesus said in the final days, there'll be, people will be calling for peace, peace, but there'll be no peace. But there is peace for the believer in his spirit. And we'll walk through Revelation. Like, if there turns out to not be a rapture, and prepare like there won't be, and hope that there will be. That's my philosophy. Be ready for the worst and
Prepared
be
for the
happy
worst.
for the best.
Well, we've decided that if that's the case, we can probably all come together. I'll bring my couponing stuff. You bring your canned goods, and we'll just be able to live for a while clean.
We'll just live right here.
We will do just fine. You know, we will walk through that with total and complete victory. Remember some of the stuff that happened? Everybody else got stung by the locusts, but they just ignored us. Everybody else had sores and boils, and
Yes.
we didn't have any. We got marked, and so we would be protected through all that, and they have to put up with it. They're all begging for the mountains to fall on them to die, and we're preaching sermons about salvation. If you read Revelation right, there is nothing but victory for the believer, and there is nothing but terror for the unbeliever. And then the last 45 days come, and it's over. He's had enough. We rise to meet Jesus in the clouds, and the bowls of wrath are poured out, and the unbelievers. What's the definition of faith?
Belief in something unseen.
Belief in something unseen and evidence.
Evidence of things hoped for.
The
The
evidence of things.
Yeah.
Now, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we cannot see. You gave us the King James Version, and this was the NIV version, but you're both right. Now, what does that really mean? Sure of what I hope for. If I'm sure of what I hope for, how will I live my life?
Like it's gonna happen. Like it's gonna happen.
Like it's going to happen. Like I'm sure of it. Like I'm certain. And I will, you know, if I'm in a situation where I need a car and I don't have a car and I can't afford a car, but I pray for a car so that I can get to church, so that I can work with the youth group and whatever, I might go out and start building a garage to keep the car in. I begin to believe and be certain that I'm going to have a car, so I fix my driveway so it won't sink in the mud. I get a load of gravel so I'll be able to park my car in the driveway. Noah's a great example. God said, Noah, it's going to rain, build an ark. And Noah said, what's rain? Well, you know, water's going to fall from the sky. Well, that ain't never happened before. I'm not a big fan of Bill Cosby anymore. but he had the greatest comedy thing on Noah. And it was hilarious. He would go back and forth from God to Noah, God to Noah. And you know, it gave you the realistic situation. Poor old Noah. It had never rained before. There was no such thing as a flood. I didn't even know if there was a boat. And back then there was one continent. They didn't need a boat to go anywhere. Maybe cross a river. And God said, we're going to put every kind of animal on earth in a boat, and you're going to build it. Now, if all the continents are one, where was he building this boat?
In the middle of dry land.
Long, long ways from water. Because if you take North America and you put it all back together and you bring up Australia, what is dead square right in the middle of the whole landmass?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Okay. Right, dead square, right in the middle of the whole thing. So how far away was he from water, from an ocean? Thousands of thousands. He'd probably never seen an ocean. And God said, build this big boat, we're going to put all these animals in it, and you're going to get in it, and there's going to be a flood. And what did Noah do? Well, if there's going to be a flood, I've only got 120 years to build this boat. So he got started. That's how long it took to build the boat, right?
Well, going.
She was just.
Yeah.
She was just.
At the, there's a few things that they are given liberty to that I was a little skeptical on. One of them was they said that it was only 75 years. And another one was they said that he came from a shipbuilding career, so he built ships. So I could not figure out how exactly they got some of their, a lot of liberties done. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there, like, the wives. It told more on the history of their family, and I'm not sure where that came from. But there's other books out there that I think they did research on that never got into the Bible, that were never documented, and I think they're getting their information from that, but I don't know. But it's very interesting to go to.
Well, let's face it, this guy didn't have any chainsaws, he didn't have any power equipment, and he didn't have 18-volt batteries. So every piece of wood in that boat was made by hand. And it is a big boat. Okay? So he works on it, he works on it, he works on it, and somewhere in the Bible it indicates something like 100 years, 120 years. I think it has to do, it tells how old he was when he started,
Yeah.
and how old he was maybe when it was over, he came out of it, and they kind of.
Yeah, that's how, and through what they said is something about, I don't remember if I took a picture of that or not, but they said something about, in the Bible it says this, so we get to this, but realistically, this had to happen before he could start, so it was this many years, so.
Okay, so between the two dates, there's 7,500 years. It's not exact, but it was a long time for a guy to be building a boat. And you think at some point you'd said, I've been working on this now for 50 years, and there's not a cloud in the sky anywhere. This might not be the smartest thing I've ever done in my life. Going back to Bill Cosby. So, he builds this boat, and he gets it ready, and he pitches it so that the water can come in, and you got all these cages and stuff for the animals to live in, and no animals have showed up now for 75 or 100 years, and he's got to be sitting around the shade thinking, maybe these guys who think I'm crazy are right. And all of a sudden, here comes the animals, 2 by 2. 7 pairs of this, 7 pairs of that, 2 pairs of the unclean. And they march right up the gangplank and go wherever they need to go and settle in for a little over a year. He also had to put food in there for all these animals. I mean, this was a massive thing. And he said, okay, God, I'll get to work. Now, that's faith. He lived like it was going to happen, and he needed to get something. Another example. The Old Testament.
Live like, I forgot the question already. What was it? Live like faith or live
Faith.
faith example? Abraham.
Abraham. 99 years old, and God says, you're going to be the father of many nations. And those 99-year-old men, that's not really very likely. Okay? And his wife's 90. Okay? And she just laughs. Remember? He just chuckled and said, and then the angel says, why'd you laugh? She said, I don't know. Mommy? The angel said, oh, yeah, you did. This time next year, you won't be laughing. You'll be in labor. But those are my words. But on your labor sheet, it has this baby. And so she becomes the mother of one nation. And Abraham does become the father of many nations because he had Ishmael, and then he had 6 kids after Sarah died by his second wife. And they all became Arabs. So not only did he create the salvation of the world, but he created Israel's own enemies. And they've been fighting ever like cats. Here's what I wrote down, and you can add to it. We have to live as though you have it, and live as though you have it, and you will have it. Seek and you shall find. Faith and hope are not found together anywhere in the Old Testament, but over and over again in the New Testament. Faith and hope are not found together anywhere in the Old Testament. So how do they get together in the New Testament?
Through Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus comes and he fulfills the hope that every human being has ever had, that you don't close your eyes and it's over. Jesus came and he fulfilled the hope of every mankind that death would not be the end of it. Isn't that about right? What do people most fear in their lives? Most people fear dying. When I was in my 20s, it was like, I used to think about it a lot more than I do now. And now I'm 72 and it's knocking on the door. I got things to do. I'm not going to worry about it. What's the difference? Jesus. I have the faith and the peace and the hope that it's all true. But what if it's not? What if we close our eyes and there's this quiet darkness and we just sleep through?
And we've lost nothing. And we've lost nothing.
We've lost nothing. Even if it's not true, and it is, but even if it wasn't true, it's a better way to live your life. Aren't you better off now than when you were out there running around trying to figure out what in this world was going to make you happy? And then Jesus comes along and wham, happy. Peace comes over you. Now, Paul says something else about salvation that I want to pick up right here. He says, we work out our salvation daily. Remember when we talked about what percentage are you attaining your salvation? Well, what's he mean by that? He means you're going to learn more about me and you're going to learn more about the process and you're going to grow in this, and as you get closer and closer to that final breath, you're going to become more and more peaceful and more confident. And death is not going to hinder your day at all. You will approach it with perfect calm. The Quakers used to have an old saying. They would say when somebody was on their last leg, or the doctor said it's time for them to go, it's not going to happen. They had a famous saying that's, let's go down to Bill's house and see how a Christian does. Let's go down to Bill's house and see how a Christian does. I was in Orley in a hospital, and they put me on 3C in Methodist Hospital, and that was the terminal ward back in that day, just after Abraham was. And everybody on 3C was dying. It was what you'd call the hospice wing today. Okay. And every day, every day, or at least every week, somebody died on the ward. And one of my jobs was to get them off the bed, onto the cart, and take them to the wall. That was my job. And there was such desperate hopelessness in some of those people's lives. Now at that time I was only 18, 19, 20 years old, 18, 19 years old when I did that. And I was a Christian, but I really didn't know anything about it. I mean, I got scared into it with fire and brimstone sermon, and I didn't realize the benefits of salvation and the peace and the hope that you can have. And walking down those halls and taking those people down and watching their loved ones just weep in hopelessness that they were gone. To look back on it, you know, I wasn't old enough and smart enough or and know enough to say anything at that point in my life to help them. But I remember how horrible it was on that wing almost every day to hear those people weep because dad was gone, or grandpa was gone, the wife was gone, or the child was gone. That's the world. Us. We have peace, hope, and joy. If we ever do the fullness thing, your joy might be full, your salvation might be full, your love might be full. It just goes on and on and on and on. Because God wants us to be filled with these three things: hope, joy, and peace. And He wants it to be a 24-hour thing. And when the jerk next door gets on your last nerve, he wants you to smile. You know, I saw something on TV the other day. If somebody flips you off with one finger, flip them off with five. And smile when you do it. That's the way we live. We live with victory and with peace. No matter what the world serves up, we know we live in a kingdom with a king, and He loves us.